Hi, welcome to Teach Tuesday, a video series from the Center for the Advancement of Teaching and Learning, where we discuss ways to marry good pedagogical practice with teaching technology.
So Todd, what's our Teach Tuesday Teaching with Technology video about for today?
Today we're going to talk about open educational resources. This is a topic that I think is timely for instructors who are thinking about what their book order is going to be for the fall, or maybe they're fretting about the fact that they've been putting it off for the last couple weeks. OERs, as they're known, are free and open, and they're peer-reviewed resources that instructors can use. And I'll admit that I was a little skeptical about OERs going in. What's the quality going to be for a free resource? Are they going to be ephemeral in that our students going to have access to them long term? Are they going to be around next semester if instructors want to use them for multiple semesters? And are they just going to be engaging? If it's a free resource, do the people who make them have a buy-in in it? And then finally, the effort that instructors take to find those resources, are they going to be repaid? Right? Are students going to benefit from the effort that instructors put into them? So I wanted to learn more about it, so I went to talk with Renee Ettinger, who's an instructional librarian in the Cofrin Library, who's very knowledgeable about it, and I learned some really interesting things.
Cool. So I look forward to seeing what you learned from Renee, and then maybe we'll come back and wrap it up.
Sounds good. Hi, so we're here with Renee Ettinger from the Cofrin Library, who's a research and instructional librarian, and we're talking about an issue to help instructors this week plan their instructional materials for the next semester. We know that now is the time when people are making their book orders, and so we wanted to talk about something that you may have heard about called Open Educational Resources, or OERs. And Renee has worked with a lot of instructors to integrate OERs into their classes. So she's a great person to talk to, both for me today and instructors in the future. So we'll just start with the first question is, what are open educational resources?
All right, yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah. And yeah, open educational resources, they really are what they say they are. They're resources that are meant to be open and meant to be freely reused. So they're classroom material, textbooks, in some cases supplementary materials. And OER, the OER community kind of defines an OER with these 5 R's. So when you create something that you mean to make open for reuse for the whole educational community, you retain the ownership of that as the creator. So that's our first R, retain. But you have to make it freely reusable to anyone. So reuse is our next R. You may own it, but you say, yes, anyone can reuse this thing, and not only can anyone reuse it, they can revise it however they like. So you can edit it, you can only use a bit of it, you can add your own content to it as a reuser of this educational resource. You can even go so far as to remix it, which is our 4th R. So in remix, it's kind of, I think, is almost the neatest thing about OERs, because you can take, like, say you have 2 or 3 that you really like, you can take the pieces of what you like out and recombine them in any way you want. And then even though you've reused it and then maybe revised it a little bit and remixed it, then as that reuser, you have a right to redistribute it. So those 5 R's are retain, reuse, revise, remix, and redistribute. And that's not done through a traditional publishing process. The publishing process that we would think of where a publishing house or a university process the rights over it. It's usually done through a Creative Commons license.
How does someone obtain a Creative Commons license?
Yeah, Creative Commons. Creative Commons has been around for a while. I don't have the exact date, but at least 10 years. And they are a not-for-profit entity, and they create licenses. It's almost like an alternative to copyright. And it's just a web-based thing. They have a website. Anyone can use it. You don't have to get special permission to put a Creative Commons statement or license and associate that with your product. And it's as simple as putting that statement on.
So someone would just Google Creative Commons
Absolutely. You
license
just
and
Google
then-
Creative Commons license, as simple as that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing with OERs is that people want to make them a little more complicated than they
Sure.
actually are. So it's pretty
Don't let the
easy to
easiness
reuse
fool
it.
you?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. So I want to go back to the 5 Rs.
Yeah.
Is someone compelled to do that? Can they just, I guess, do the reuse, find something on the internet and reuse it? Or are they compelled to be a remixer or a reviser?
Oh no, you could just reuse something and use it out of the box exactly how it was created. You do not have to revise it. You do not have to remix it. You can, and there's plenty of really high quality OERs out there where you would look at it and think, yep, this suits my needs. This is great. I'm not going to change a thing.
But you have the flexibility then if you wanted to, find something on the internet and then also adapt it to the needs of your class. Unlike a textbook where people are like,
Right.
you're sort of bound by that intellectual property of the textbook.
Exactly.
You can take this and adapt it to the needs of your class.
Well, and that's kind of the beauty of it because I think frequently, especially classes with a long list of textbooks that are required, there may be only pieces of the text that you want your students to read.
Okay.
So
Sure.
in this way, if you use an OER, you can, instead of presenting the entire textbook to the student, you can just pull out chapter 6 and chapter 14, if those are the only two that are relevant to your class, and drop that into your managed course.
Yeah, well, that gets it into, I think an important issue for instructors, which is the work that it takes
Yeah.
to use these, right? And so you're kind of saying, it seems to me, that instructors are already doing this work, right? That a lot of
Sure.
times they have publishers and they have textbooks that they order, but they're already sort of piecing together various different readings to create their class.
Right.
And this is sort of a way to do that, another way to do that.
It's another way to do that. I think depending on the route you go to find an OER, there's a path that's a little simpler. If you go to organizations like OpenStax or Merlot, or I have a list of them here, they do package things in a way on their website where it's easy to browse through the OERs and find exactly what you need. I mean, I think it's great because you can go in and look at the entire text. You don't have to rely on a publisher to either send you materials or somehow get some evaluative, information to you about the text you're going to use.
Interesting, yeah. I was wondering, so you mentioned, some organizations people can look up. I was wondering if you could just maybe describe what the range of types of OERs, like what's out there? People start looking for
Yeah,
things.
there's a lot out there. There's a ton in the K-12 community, but it's really picking up steam for our undergraduate kind of level too. In pretty much every subject. I mean, there's no one subject that's like, algebra is fantastic, but economics is not. It's
Sure.
really, you can really find that.
So whatever
in
you're teaching,
anything.
you can find
Whatever you're teaching,
for the
you can
most part.
find something. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And are they all digital, or can students all get a print version of a book if they wanted to get a print version?
They're usually internet-based, and depending on the product, it may be in a printable format, and depending on the organization that you go through, you could get it printed. It's less traditional to have a printed OER. They generally are internet-based, but it's not like that's completely out of the question that you wouldn't be able to get something in a printed format.
How have you seen, or how have you helped students then interact with those texts? So if they have like a digital text, how do you help them take notes and pull meaning out of those texts?
Oh, well, a lot of OERs actually have that functionality embedded in the actual product where you can take notes within that. I feel like I haven't done formal research into this, but when I've looked at studies that are being done on online textbooks, e-textbooks, as opposed to print textbooks, students tend to be more engaged with something that is an internet-based product, even though they will say, I like my print book. They're actually more likely to read their online materials, especially that's kind of a surprising thing.
Yeah.
I think even the our traditionally aged student will still think that they like to have that print book in their hands, but they engage more with the online resource, especially if there's like any type of multimedia involved with it, any type of interactive, any type of videos.
Do you have a sense, just based on your observations, about why that might be? Why people prefer say one thing but do another? That's one question, but then also there's a question of why are these books more engaging, or why are these text resources more engaging?
You know, I think that's just how we consume information now. We're not used to, you know, reading blocks of text on a page. We're used to reading some text and then watching a video and then taking a quiz and then reading some more text. I think it's just how information is presented to us now.
Okay.
You know, that's my, it's purely a guess, but.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And then in terms of time, how long does when you work with instructors, or when you've done your own research on this, how long does it take to find, if you were to develop a class, how long would it take to find suitable OERs?
You know, I really think that if you go to something like OpenStax or Merlot or something that has a little bit of pre-vetting to it, it wouldn't take much longer than if you would go to a traditional publisher. Now, if you're just going to kind of go out there and search around for something that matches our 5 Rs, it would certainly take you longer because you'd have to do the evaluating yourself. Minnesota OpenUMN does a really cool thing with their repository of OERs, and they provide incentives for people to leave reviews. Okay. So it's not like a traditional academic review that we would think of where it's, you know, a formally written page or two of something. It's almost more like an Amazon, like a good Amazon review, a nice big fat paragraph on how this worked for a particular person in their coursework. So that's a neat resource to use because there are those reviews and you have that feedback from a peer of, you know, hey, I used this and these are the pieces that worked and these are the pieces that didn't.
What other benefits? So I've seen some research about student retention and that sort of thing. Have you, with open educational resources? One of the things that kind of surprised me in this, because I was a bit of a skeptic, frankly, about OERs, was that it actually does have a significant impact on student success and student retention. Have you seen any of that research, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, you know, I think that does make sense to me. If someone is more engaged with the text, they're going to be more engaged with the class, and they're going to be more likely to persist through. I think the other thing that we maybe haven't talked about yet is just the fact that it's going to save students money.
Right.
And that's huge. I mean, UWGB, we estimate that each student will spend $800 a year on textbooks. It's a lot of money. And I see other figures out there nationally, more like a $1,200 average. That's a ton of money for an 18, 19-year-old. And if 1 or 2 classes are not going to require purchased texts, I mean, to me, that does translate to retention and persisting through a class. So, yeah. And then they get to look at their textbook before they even choose a class. If it's an open educational resource, it's out there. They could look through the whole thing and be like, yep, this is for me.
Yeah, well, the other, I mean, one of the other traditional arguments for textbooks has been, you know, the students are building a library of knowledge, right, that they're going to take with them. And so textbooks have that benefit of, you know, if you're going to be a doctor, having that anatomy textbook is an investment in your professional education, right?
Yeah.
But it sounds like an OER, would an OER be that? If they, would they have that?
It would be available. It would be, yeah. I mean, that's part of it being an OER is that it's out there for anyone to use, not just, you know, you don't have to show your professor credentials before you can reuse an OER. Absolutely anyone can. So that would also mean a graduate of our university. So that's.
And then if the other part of an OER being open is that anyone can contribute to it, right?
Yes.
And so textbooks do have like a gatekeeping function, and that, you know, you have someone with a credential who's maybe a professor of economics writing an economics textbook.
Right.
Do you have that same gatekeeping function with OERs, that you can sort of trust the resource, or how do you go about developing trust in that resource?
Yeah, I think that also depends on where you get your OER from. So maybe a company like OpenStax, or an organization, I shouldn't call it a company, is probably going to be more selective on what they include in their offerings, or like Merlot and some of these other things that'll come out in the email. So there is a little bit of pre-vetting there. But just like with anything you find online, I always encourage people to check out the author and other things like how currently was it published, who's actually doing the authorship of it. I mean, we're all capable of doing that intellectual work of doing a little evaluation. So
Information literacy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what would you say to someone who just want to get their feet wet? That maybe they're interested in open educational resources and they're thinking about it maybe for next semester. What would be a good way to go about getting their feet wet, just like seeing if it's for them?
Right. Go to some of the heavy hitters and look at what they have. Open UMN. Go. Let's see. What's another one? OER Commons, OpenStax, Merlot. They know how to do it. OpenStax knows how to do it. OER Commons, Merlot, Sailor, they all know how to do this stuff. So I'd start there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
There's, I think an alternative is, and we have some professors doing this, using the ebooks from the library too. Like you can go in and use library material, which of course is free for your students. It certainly isn't an OER because you can't revise it or remix it, and you wouldn't then be able to redistribute it. But it is a way to save a little bit of money for your students.
Yeah. And there's restrictions on how many students can use those at a time?
It depends on the product. So most of our ebook packages is unlimited users, but we do have some that are limited use. So if you're going to go that route, contact the library and we can check that out for you and make sure that it's something that your entire class would be able to access at once, and that it would be available for the full semester.
And do you see students around the library using it?
It's kind of hard to tell. You wouldn't be able to over the shoulder. Like,
yeah.
what is that? Well, in almost that's kind of a good thing, because in an online textbook and an OER, a good OER, you're not going to be able to tell if it's something that was purchased through a traditional publisher as an online text or if it was open. So it's the quality, if you pick a good one, should be the same as if you had purchased something through a traditional publisher.
Sounds good. I guess maybe the last thing to talk about is before we started rolling, we had talked about the ways in which publishers are now trying to monetize.
Yeah.
Of course, OERs, right? And in some ways, you can kind of even see it happening within the organizations, right? There's sort of big OER organizations that are developing OpenStax, Merlot. They're kind of the Wiley and Cengage of OERs,
right?
In a sense.
They are.
They're not they're not for profit, but
right.
What are some of the ways in which OERs are sort of seeping into that traditional textbook market that you've seen?
Well, the feedback I've gotten actually from textbook publishers is they understand that their system's a little broken and that they need to make some changes. And I think a few years ago they saw OERs as something that weren't going to be too much of a threat, and that faculty would never use them and K-12 would never use them, and it's really changed. I think OERs are eating into their bottom line, and they're realizing that they probably need to make some partnerships with these folks if they want to move in the direction that a lot of our professors and also K-12 teachers are moving. I think that, to me, as someone who thinks that OERs are a great thing to use and a great thing to check out, that's encouraging to me that publishers are kind of going after that market, because they're seeing that it's a successful thing.
Yeah.
And it's not just some fly by night, we tried this and failed miserably, I guess we'll go back to our traditional textbook publishers. So we tried this, didn't fail miserably, actually being pretty successful with it, and now traditional publishing needs to kind of step up their game a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because they have models to follow, right? They have the music industry.
Yes.
Obviously, one big model where you have like the digital sort of liberating things from the physical content of a record or a CD, right? And then all of a sudden people can share and stream things, and then it took the music industry a while to figure out how to monetize that. Yeah. Perhaps textbooks can
follow suit.
They can follow suit.
Yeah.
And, they have that model to follow anyways.
Yeah.
But I guess what you have sort of parting words for instructors who may be wondering if this is something for them?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
I would think just, take a few minutes and look at some of the bigger OER publishers, and I think you'll be surprised if you've never taken the time to do that. I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised that there might be something that you could use in a class. So I would just encourage everyone to take a few minutes out of their day and click on some of those links in the email and see if anything's going to work out for you.
Yeah, and I'm sure you could come to the library and
Absolutely,
see you or
yes.
one of the other great reference librarians.
Thank you for that plug.
So, yeah.
Yes, you can absolutely come and see me. Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
and,
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Well, Todd, I think that was a very informative interview, but there was a lot of information there. So
Definitely.
what are some of the key takeaways? People are building their syllabi, picking their textbooks. What can we take away today?
Yeah, so I think the top things to take away from all the things that Renee had to say is that one, OERs are generally of high quality, especially if you get it from a trusted source, and that two, there's lots of materials out there. There's good services out there. So finding things will take a little bit of time, but there are services out there like OpenStax and Merlot and OpenUMN for people. And that three, since the resources are free, students will have access to those resources once the semester is over, unlike ebooks from a publisher. And then finally, there's research to suggest that the time and effort that instructors put into finding open educational resources will be repaid in student success and retention.
Very good.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed that topic, look for us in 2 weeks where we'll be doing another Teach Tuesday video about another cool topic.